everyone, and welcome to LexTalk World Talk Show presented by Clicker Creators. Today, we have Ms. Vivian Kuan with us. Vivian is currently a partner and head of litigation at Nik Hussain Partners, a law firm based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Her current practice areas are focused on banking, civil, and commercial disputes involving the breach of director duties, breach of fiduciary relationship, company and shareholder disputes, minority oppression, breach of trust, construction claims, and so on and so forth. Vivian has significant experience in respect to injunctive and interim relief applications. She frequently undertakes public interest matters as well. So without any further ado, let me introduce you to the lady herself. Vivian, thank you so much for being on the show today. And how are you doing?
Hi, Vin. Thank you so much for having me. It's a great pleasure to be on the show.
It's a pleasure for us as well. And I'm sure this conversation is going to bring out a lot of important topics that a lot of our viewers would be interested in listening to. And coming from the head of litigation at Nik Hussain Partners will definitely be worth spending time on. So I hope our viewers are all ready to get into this. I'm sure that we are going to kind of talk about a lot of things in a quick 20-minute session here. So without any further ado, let's quickly get started. And Vivian, first of all, if you can help us to learn a bit about your firm and your current areas of practices, just to start with.
Thank you so much for that, Vin. As you have very aptly pointed out, I am from a firm called Nik Hussain Partners. We are based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. We are a full service firm. We have a corporate and banking division, real estate division, litigation in which I'm heading, and the intellectual property division as well. We have been around for quite some time, almost 50 years now, coming to 50 years in about 2 years. We were formed in 1973. So yes, like you mentioned, I am the head of litigation. My focus areas are in banking, commercial, civil litigation, and this also includes probate and administration litigation. I also undertake a little bit of public interest and pro bono work. And in fact, we were very, very humbled to have been shortlisted as one of the nominees for this award, and previously as well by the Asian Legal Business Malaysia Award as Dispute Resolution Boutique Law Firm of the Year. Fortunately, I was also awarded Women Lawyer of the Year 2020. So very, very humbled to be here today with you, Win, and speaking about the reach and far extending reach that LexTalk has in the legal fraternity.
That's amazing. And thank you so much for that brief introduction about yourself. And talking about those recognition, those accolades that you have received, I think it's all the hard work that you put into. And I think if someone who's really should be congratulated, it's you and the firm, not we people, because we are just trying to find out people like you who are actually making a change in the industry and bringing and putting in so many efforts and so much of effort. Thank you so much on that, Vivian, for helping us with a quick and a brief introduction about the firm and about yourself. I'll quickly move on to the next question. And here we want to talk about one of the most complex legal issues that you have worked upon. So can you describe that a little bit to us about the complexities that you had to kind of face, and also tell us how did you approach this particular issue?
Yes, indeed. Actually, this was a few years back. It's one of those briefs where it sticks with you throughout your practice, and it's something that you will always remember. So this is one brief that I will always take with me and remember. It's one of the most enjoyable briefs I've had. It was back in my formative years of practice. It's a very simple partnership dispute, which actually involve various types of injunctions. So antebellum, injunction mariva, prohibitory, and the usual ad interim injunctions. So my client was actually one of Malaysia's largest medical laboratory. they opened, they had an expansion drive. So they opened medical labs in East Malaysia as well, in a city called Sarawak. And this was done through a joint venture vehicle. So my client had a 50% stake, and his partner had a 50% stake.
Mhm.
Right. So my client, going through this expansion, suddenly discovered that his partner had surreptitiously incorporated his own companies. So his partner, misappropriated monies, assets, confidential information, businesses and clients belonging to this joint venture vehicle that they were supposed to run together.
Mhm.
So it's actually a very straightforward partnership disputes, where it addressed various issues like breach of joint venture, breach of fiduciary duty, breach of confidential information. But what made this very unique was because the cause of action and the issues surround jurisdictional issues. Because, like I mentioned just now, the vehicle or the business was expanded to East Malaysia. So just a little bit of a background. Malaysia, there are two high courts in Malaysia: the High Court of Malaya, which is West Malaysia, and High Court of Sabah and Sarawak. There are two different high courts. So it necessitated two different suits, one to be filed in West Malaysia and one in East Malaysia. So, yeah, and we couldn't have two similar suits. So we had to file one on a breach of joint venture and another one on an oppression petition. But it was on the same factual matrix. We had to ask for different reliefs and prayers. And we actually asked for various injunctive orders, including the Anton Pillar order, and we had to execute them together. So that was the very exciting part, where I remember executing Anton Pillar order. We were communicating on our group chat, said, okay, let's execute now. And we went into the medical laboratory and basically searched, because Anton Pillar is a search order. So we had to have that element of surprise, because Anton Pillar is also an ex parte order where you need to, there must be the element of surprise so that they do not destroy evidence. So we executed it together, and it was a lot of logistics and administrative issues to sort out, but that was really fun. So from the evidence we uncovered from the Anton Pillar, we found that the partner had indeed used confidential information belonging to our client. So additionally, we filed a Mariva injunction to freeze the assets, because it was quite apparent that he was going to dissipate the assets already. So yeah, various injunctions, and there was also a challenge on jurisdiction, because they attempted to strike out the West Malaysia claim, and that was brought up on appeal. Consequently, also contempt proceedings were filed, because the partner breached several court orders, and because of the contempt proceedings, there was, I think, a jail sentence. They then settled the matter. So that was, we didn't go to trial, but that was one of those briefs that really, really stuck with me today, and I really enjoyed that very, very much.
That's amazing. And you're right, you get into so many different projects, but some of them really stick with you for a lifetime, and you always kind of remember them and cherish them, that you had the opportunity to be a part of them. Continuing on the same question, Vivian, if I may also ask you, and for our viewers, if you can point out a few important aspects of this brief. I mean, how did you really approach it? What were the important aspects of it? How did you make sure that you're fully prepared? Because there were so many, conjunction, as you said. So how did you make sure that you were completely prepared for them and everything?
Well, I think we had to be really familiar with the documents. We really had to be very familiar with the evidence. And this was no small feat. it was voluminous boxes and boxes of documents showing that, there was this breach of joint venture, breach of confidential information, and we had to have them all basically compartmentalized and segregated for the purposes of going for trial. Because at the end of the day, ante pillar evidence is to support your case during the trial proceedings. So just really making sure that we have everything in soft copy and hard copy, making sure that the bundles are in place, making sure our client knows the direction of the case and the strategy of the case, and having clear communication as well with the client. And we worked also with several senior counsels. So basically, sitting down with them, picking their brains, and really refining the strategy, and having it all come together, and resolving the matter in the end.
I just hope that you were able to get it for your client what they were actually looking for. And for our viewers, I'd like to highlight here. So we have learned it so many times here on the same chat show that actually the courtroom proceedings does not start in the courtroom. It starts way before that. And that's when you are strategizing, you have your teams sitting together on a common table and putting together those notes. So I think that's what Vivian is also referring to, right? Yeah.
Spot on, Vin. That's absolutely spot on.
Yeah, thank you so much. So thank you so much once again for sharing such great insights on that particular thing. And I think you will always remember this brief, but I'm sure our viewers will also remember how you are supposed to prepare well in advance and never under-prepare, always over-prepare. All right, so let's move on to the next one here quickly. The next question talks about the pandemic. So we saw that many courts were being moved towards more remote proceedings and availabilities. Do you think, Vivian, this is sustainable and a possible way to increase access to justice?
Yes, certainly. Certainly, COVID-19 has had such a huge impact in the judicial process in my country, Malaysia. In fact, we had recent proposed amendments to our Court of Judicature Act, our Rules of Court of Appeal, Rules of Federal Court, and this was to pave the way to have more remote communication technology in our court proceedings. So there has indeed been an accelerated adaptation to digitalizing court processes, and this is of course to bridge the social distancing gap that we are now facing. So restrictions are in place because of COVID-19. I think this applies to every country in the world. I think our courts have been very, very swift in adapting to remote hearings. And like you've said, I think this really is to ensure the continuity of the administration of justice. And I think remote hearings are here to stay. They will very, very likely remain a key feature of the litigation landscape in Malaysia. Even though we see restrictions slowly being lifted, we do see the court still being very keen in fixing online hearings as we speak.
Amazing. Vivian, a quick question on this one too. When we talk about these online proceedings, and you are the head of litigation, right? So we want to know, do you think that almost every kind of a brief can be done through online proceedings, or there are a few that you always need to have an in-person hearing or an in-person brief?
Yeah, I think that's a very pertinent and a very good question. As from my experience, there primarily online hearings can be done unless the hearing requires the defendant to come to court. So for example, I handle a little bit of banking litigation where primarily the cases are foreclosure of property. So let's say, a borrower cannot complete the payment of the loan, and the borrower has to resort to have his or her property being auctioned off. So in those cases, the court is very, very fair. The court will not fix an online hearing unless the defendant is able to, attend a Zoom hearing. So 99.9% of these type of cases, they are fixed physically, and the defendant is to attend court to actually be able to be present during the hearing, because we don't want to the courts does not want to discriminate against defendants or borrowers that do not have access to internet, do not have access to hardware or software that would enable them to attend a Zoom hearing. So for these kind of cases, we would go physically to court. And I think that's the case as well for criminal cases where, you know, the defendants will have to be present in court.
That's absolutely right. And I think this brings me one more small doubt here. I think more importantly, I think we need to work on the infrastructure development to make sure that we can increase the number or the percentage of virtual hearings as much as we can. As you rightly said, not having the access to internet, not having the access to the required infrastructure. And I'm sure that can be developed. And I'm sure, you know, pandemic has taught us this, that, you know, we really have to work on these lines, and we have in the future, we might be seeing that, you know, everything which can be done online is strictly getting done online, and you're not really required to be in a courtroom all the time.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much, Vivian. I think we will quickly move on to the next one. But before that, a quick highlight for our viewers that infrastructure is definitely important. That needs to be, that needs to be promoted and created. However, as Vivian said, if a defendant is not particularly required to be physically present in the court, almost all sort of cases can be handled through virtual hearings and virtual proceedings. So that's amazing. Thank you so much, Vivian. I'll quickly move on to the next question here. The next one talks about the technology again. So we'll continue on this one. So in the era of legal technology, what are the most commonly used tools for you?
Right, I think there are two parts to this. So for me, it is software and hardware, right? For software, I think PDF tools are really a blessing from God, especially tools to merge, to convert, to compress documents, because nowadays documents are e-filed in court, and they are sent by way of email to your opponents. Very few occasions we see that, you know, hard copies are required. Even the courts will encourage us to file PDF, and they will just refer to the PDF. They do not want you to send any any hard copy to court nowadays. So PDF tools, and I find that there are many free tools online, so that's great. The recent discovery I had made was the Foxit software. So Foxit. Yeah, Foxit software. It actually helps to paginate, reference, and even shortcut bundles. And this is very, very useful for hearings and trials, where you just click on a particular section of, let's say, a submission, and it will bring you to the excerpt of the court case of the what do you call it? The printed court case. So I found that to be fantastic, and you can even highlight there. So yeah, Foxit. That's for software. About hardware, I think we lawyers are very fortunate. We do not need expensive features like other professions. We do not need really expensive, those kind of processors, right? We just need a good working laptop. So for me, my requirement for a good working laptop is something that is fairly light, so that I can carry and work wherever, and something that's fairly fast, it does not lag, and I make sure that you know, my documents are backed up periodically. And most importantly, I have a cloud, so seamless access across my phone, my laptop, my iPad, so that I can work on different devices. So those are my go-to tools.
Oh, I think we have a common one there then. I love the PDF split and merge applications too much. I mean, they are actually made by God. They're lifesavers at times. All right, thank you so much, Vivian, for sharing them with us. And I'm sure our viewers would also be making a note of this. What are those tools that you can use in your daily work life routine to make sure that, you know, you are efficient and you're not really spending time on things that can be done in a snap? All right, so let's quickly move on to the next question. And here we talk about a legal professional. So time is money. Let me put it that way. Time is money in any profession. And in legal, it's most of all. So Vivian, how do you ensure to make the best of your time as a lawyer?
So how I have developed a habit recently where I end every day with a to-do list for the next day. Right. So next morning, I just come, I look at my to-do list and I look at the most difficult task first. For example, I mean, not to say difficult, but the tasks that which would require more thinking, more brain work, leg work, and everything. So I would go for drafting, research, very complex legal research, or even getting up for a new brief. I would go for those tasks first. And I find that to be very effective for me because I have more attention span and more attentiveness in the morning. And then I leave the easier ones like replying to emails, like letters, sending out letters, administrative tasks for the later part of the day. So that's how I compartmentalize my tasks. Other than that, I think it is very important to take breaks. And this is what I've learned. Be disciplined about taking breaks, right? It's a little bit of a oxymoron, be disciplined about taking breaks. But I think that's absolutely important because you function better when you are well rested. And not just rest, I think it's important to do things you love outside of the profession. I actually love sports. I was fortunate enough to be able to represent Malaysia in the Asian Games and the SEA Games in
Oh,
Dragon Boat.
wow.
Yeah, so that was
Amazing. Yeah.
but the athlete life is over for me now. So I'm more towards running and jogging. So I will be very disciplined in clocking off at 6 p.m. and I'll go for a run or for a walk. And I would actually, if I'm walking, I would listen to podcasts. So it's killing two birds with one stone, you know, walking, having some exercise, and also learning something new.
True. Absolutely.
Yeah, other than sports, I love to paint. And I would say read as well. I love reading, watching documentaries. I think it's important to make time for this, as you've mentioned just now. Yes, time is indeed money, and you need to use your time to learn new things. And that's what I discovered. You know, you need to make time for these things because learning things outside of the law, outside of the profession, actually really adds value to the legal professional life. And then getting back into, you know, the foray in the evening. Let's say if I need to continue drafting a brief, I get back to it in the evening or early next morning, and I find that I focus better.
That's absolutely true. I completely believe in what you're telling us. Those tiny small breaks in between your day of your working day are very much important. They give you that energy, and those small breathers really help you to focus better and be more efficient. I completely agree with you. And I didn't know that I'm talking to an ex-sportswoman, but this is great to know about that you have you had the opportunity to represent the country in Asian Games. So that's amazing. And this also tells us that if you are a legal professional, it's not just you have to do the work all the time. It's very important to kind of engage yourself into other activities that makes you much more comfortable and helps you work much more efficiently. Thank you so much, Vivian. With that, I'll quickly move on to the last question of the session. Here, we want to talk about the qualities a lawyer should have in order to succeed in a practice.
Well, thank you so much for that question, Vin. I actually wouldn't say that I have succeeded. I have so much more to learn, and I am still very much a work in progress. But I would say this to that question. Always say yes to opportunities. And one answer or one example would be where I was asked, to run for elections and to serve the bar in my state bar, Kuala Lumpur. And I was then, of course, elected, and I served as the young lawyers chairperson for 2 terms, 2 years. So saying yes to that opportunity really was a lot of hard work, but it had opened a lot of doors for me. So I now am able to, have the kind of opportunities to speak at webinars, even invited to radio station interviews. And this year, in fact, I was invited to join the Commonwealth Lawyers Association. So I was able to contribute to the CLA from a Malaysian perspective. So yes, always don't turn down opportunities, say yes to it. Although it may be hard work, it will pay off in the long run. Secondly, don't confine yourself to law. I think that I touched a little bit on that just now. So let me just elaborate a little bit more. I think, yes, it is important to stay updated and to be very, very commercially aware of the legal updates, the new climate in the legal industry.
Yeah,
But
the new developments that are taking place. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's also important to read widely, and learn about different things, and so that because I feel lawyers are very tunnel vision. We only focus on current legal issues, which is great. I think that should be the case, but don't just confine yourself to the law. Read widely, talk to people from other types of careers and vocation. You will be able to learn so much more from their perspective, and they have so many great ideas that we can actually adopt in our practice. So that's don't confine yourself to law. Third one is to always show the keenness to learn from seniors, because as a young lawyer, we have so much to learn, right? We are just figuring things out, figuring what we enjoy, what we don't, what we are good at, what we're not. So seniors are actually the pathway to shortcut that long learning process. Sometimes they would be able to show you the way, they will be able to teach you, but sometimes seniors they get they don't get very inspired unless they see that you are actually interested to learn. So always show that attitude that you want to learn. All right. Fourthly, always deliver good work. I think people always ask me what are the tips for business development as a young lawyer? How do you market yourself? How do you create a brand for yourself? How do you develop yourself in the legal business world? And my first port of call will always be deliver good work, because the best way for anyone to speak about you is your work, right? Let your work speak for you. You would see that your clients will come back, your peers will remember you if they have a legal problem, and they know that you do good work. And even sometimes I've seen opponents, the people that you fight with or fight against in court, they will also think of you because they see how good your work is. So always deliver good work. And lastly, this is just I think a nice end to this question. And most pertinently, I think this is what I always tell my juniors: always be teachable. All right, because I think anyone and everyone in the world will fail at some point in their life. And as long as you have the resilience and tenacity to stand up again and be better than yesterday, I think this will take you to the distance, because this will stand the test of time. And being teachable actually gets a little bit harder when we are more senior, when we develop a little bit more experience. We tend to, our teachability tends to sort of reduce a little bit. But actually, if we can actually remember to have this teachable spirit and be open to learning even from those who are younger than us, and merge that tenacity and teachability with the experience that we have, I think this will really help us refine our practice as we mature and become more experienced in the legal fraternity.
Wow, I think all those 5 points are right. I mean, you nailed them completely, right? Spot on. And I think everyone should be making note of them. What are those ways that how you can be a successful legal professional if you're a young lawyer or if you're in law schools right now, and if you're beginning your career just right now, these are the points that you should always remember. My favorite one was the one when you said deliver the best work always, because that's the best way to retain your clients and make sure that they're never looking for someone else in the future when they are stuck in the similar sort of a problem. So that's absolutely right. So with that, Vivian, we come to the end of this session. I wish that we could have continued this, but in respect of time, this is what we will call it a day today. But thank you so much, Vivian, for sharing such great insights with us. I'm sure our viewers will be able to learn so many things out of your experience and out of the suggestions that you have shared in this quick chat. We would love to have you on our shows in the future as well. And we would love to discuss on some other trending topics in the legal fraternity. But for now, thank you so much for your time on the show. This is Vinay signing off for LexTalk World.